quiet moments before the world wakes up. There's a place where pain meets peace, where every breath feels like a prayer and grief stands still. We carry the weight of what was and search for meaning in the smallest things. And sometimes all it takes is one moment to remind us we're still here, still healing.
Oh, there we are. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. I'm the host of this podcast. And yes, of course, we are your number one podcast from bringing you stories around death, down, and grief, all the messiness that comes in between, with some amazing people out here doing some amazing things, changing people's lives one heartbeat at a time. Now, before we get started, I'd like to say, if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head on over to today's YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And most importantly, this is a live stream, so if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. Now, before I bring on my guest, one more thing that I have to add. This is for educational purposes only. Now, without further ado, guys, help me welcome my next guest to the show, Andrea Hunt. Andrea, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's great to see you, Tony.
And same here. And so now, before we get started, introduce yourself to the audience. So tell people who you are, where you're from, about the work that you do.
Sure. So my name is Andrea, and I'm originally from Minnesota, but I was in a small town. I wasn't very happy there at that point in my life. And so I kind of started traveling and exploring and pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. So I've lived all over the world now, and now I'm based most of the time in Germany. And so now I'm an EFT Empowerment Coach. I help people reach their goals faster by clearing self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and overcoming burnout. And I use transformational coaching and EFT tapping, which is it's a mind-body technique that releases fear and negative emotions in the brain so that you can shift the limiting beliefs and issues that self-worth that you might have, calm your nervous system, and take confident, aligned action, even when you feel overwhelmed.
Nice. I love that. And thank you for the work that you do. Very, very important. So let's talk about it a little bit more. What can clients expect? What sort of experience can clients expect working with you?
Sure. So I think the most important thing is when you get started is to kind of look at where you are versus where you want to be. So what's working? If something is working, how can you do more of that? And then looking around and being like, okay, what's maybe not aligned? Because a lot of people find that, they might have, okay, let's say that their job is good, but maybe they're burnt out and they don't have any time to exercise. They're not eating well. They're not sleeping well. So they don't feel good. Or maybe, they're doing great with money, but maybe they have no social life because all they do is work. And so It's about taking the honest look at your life and being like, all right, based on all of the factors around me, there's only so much that, we can change about the world around us, but we can always change ourselves, our belief systems, our habits, and how we show up in the world. And that is really coming from a place of power, understanding, all right, I don't like this. Maybe I can't change my boss. Okay. But I can decide how I want to approach it. Maybe I need to do, whatever it is, go exercise in the morning so that I can be more responsive and grounded so that I can deal with things better. Or maybe I need to take action and change jobs or change departments or whatever it is. So when you start looking at like, okay, here are the things that I would like to change, then it's time to start looking honestly at where might you be holding yourself back? Because most of us, if we're honest, we have dreams, we've got things that we want to achieve, but it's not that simple. So many people, some people are able to just take a list and they just do it. They knock it out of the park. They take action. They do it. They don't have any fear. But honestly, for most of it, it's not like that. I mean, imposter syndrome is very common. I have really struggled, my whole life with that. So the things that I have done, it's because I deliberately took action and decided to do it anyway, and I was terrified. I was not fearless or anything. I moved to Mexico by myself without speaking Spanish to anybody. And I sat there the first night in the bed and cried. However, it ended up being one of the best things that I had ever done for myself. So it's important that people can learn that confidence can be like a muscle. And now that I have EFT tapping, I wish I had it before. It's easier to manage your comfort zone. So it's like you're growing your confidence like a muscle, and you're reducing the fear, letting it go, processing your feelings. And so you can keep taking those small bits of evidence, those small steps that create evidence for yourself that, like, I can do this. And that's how you move forward without being, Superman or or fearless. I mean, it's okay to understand that we don't need to be fearless in order to be courageous.
That's very true. Which leads me to my first thoughts on this, because I love the fact that that you're able to teach people how to do that. So, what is one of the biggest challenges why people remain stuck in that mindset of not? I know imposter syndrome is one, but and being courageous and wanting to see what's on the other side. But I also see, because I've struggled with this before. I also see people get there and want to dip their toe in, and when it's just unfamiliar, they kind of pull back and everything and get kind of lost inside of their own heads. And I can contribute that to a lot of people are still dealing with unresolved traumas and
Hmm.
unhealed parts of them. What are your thoughts and opinions on that?
Sure. I mean, first of all, like, I mean, worth has to do with a lot of it, because if we're not sure that we really deserve something better, a lot of times we'll end up, self-sabotaging, because our nervous system wants to keep us safe. It doesn't want us in fight, flight, or freeze because we have to apply for a job that we're like only feel 60% qualified for.
Right.
For a lot of people, I mean, fear of failure is probably the most common. I mean, most of us can relate to that, but we tend to kind of also catastrophize and be like, oh my God, if I fail this, I'm never going to be able to show my face again. And of course, there's the element of like, they're all going to criticize me. They're all going to laugh at me. Somebody's not going to like it. Maybe my, family thinks it's ridiculous what I want to do. Maybe my colleagues are going to think I'm, being extra by trying to apply for, to present to a client or something like that. And we have so many fears around criticism and not wanting to rock the boat when it comes to our community, our tribe, and everything like that. And because the truth is that sometimes, when the more that you get successful, the more you do things, not everybody likes that. And it also reminds people of the things that they're not doing. And so you really need to be strong in yourself to be like, you know what, these are the things I'm going to do, and I'm not going to give my power away to them to decide what I do with my life. But for a lot of us, like, if you come from trauma, there's issues of like not feeling good enough, not feeling it's safe to be seen, not feeling it's safe to have a voice. Perfectionism is a big one too, because if it needs to be perfect, you'll never find the 100% chance, that you're 100% ready, right? I mean,
Right.
you'll keep kind of moving the goalposts, and, oh, okay, I need one more certification. I need one more, training course. I need one more look over my website. And so people can spend literally years with this faraway dream that, as long as they can tell themselves, oh, I just want to make sure it's just right, then it's something that they're not really taking action on, even though they can tell themselves that they are. But once we kind of get honest with ourselves and be like, okay, so where are you holding yourself back? And what is your role in this? Because a lot of times we also want to blame other people. Oh, okay, my wife doesn't like this job, or like, or it's because, whatever reason, we have a lot of stories we tell ourselves, sometimes even excuses. So yeah.
Very, very true. Very, very true. We got a comment up here. I want to put this up here real quick and get your thoughts on this. IKS, thank you for tuning in, my brother. And he says, stepping out of one's comfort zone is the hardest thing because of the fear of the unknown. Hinders a lot
Absolutely.
of people because no one likes to fail. I
Hmm.
love that. I definitely love
Yeah.
that. As a matter of fact, I was talking to somebody about that same exact thing not too long ago. And it was a reminder when I was talking to this individual that we've always been failing our whole entire lives. So what changed from the times that we were children up until the times that we're adults? Is it the change in mindset? Is it the journey that they've been on? Because there's a lot of things to take into consideration
Hmm.
when thinking about that as
Sure.
well, right? A more in-depth um, um, thing that's going on with certain people. And I think for me, when people can step outside of that, it shows a different set of strength and
Mm.
resilience. for a
Absolutely.
person to want to step into the unknown, not knowing how it's going to work out, but having a true sense of faith in the
Hmm.
journey they're
Hmm.
on, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I like everything you said. I would totally agree with that. And thank you for the comment, by the way. That was really good. I also wanted to ask the one that people don't always think about is the fear of success, because a lot of people
Mm,
actually have the fear that, like, okay, what if I get this and I can't handle it? Like what if I, like, really put in all my efforts to this and I get what I want, then what am I supposed to do? What if I can't maintain it? What if, there's a million things there. So sorry if I just had to
yeah.
add on that.
No, I love that because that's a fear that most people never really think about. But we oftentimes,
Spotlight.
once we embark on this journey, that that is a reality, the fear of success. And
Hmm.
I love the fact that you brought it up, the questions that come along with that. And so I would guess my thoughts on it would be, and I just want to get your opinion on this. Some people have an expectation of what success looks like. And because they're constantly looking at other people, they got to have the fancy cars, they have to have,
Mm.
their seven figures in their bank account, they have to have a certain lifestyle and things like that. And oftentimes it never really looks like that, right?
Mhm.
And so I've seen people be disappointed with that expectation as well.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
So I think it's a couple things. I think first of all, when we want something from a place of authenticity, and, like, we
Mhm.
understand our motivation for something, then when we reach that, we will feel more fulfilled about it. But if we're kind of comparing ourselves and, like, okay, my neighbor has a really nice car, so I want to have a nice car. You're not really doing that from a place of your own values. Do you know what I mean? You're
Right,
just trying to
right.
kind of show one up, and so that's not authentic. So when you get that, it might feel really good for a couple months or something like that, but then it's like there's very often people who they have the perfect car, they have the perfect life, and they're still not happy. And I think a lot of times that comes down to feeling that that piece of authenticity in terms of your purpose is maybe not there. You've done all the things you're supposed to do, that society wants us to do, that maybe our family wants us to do, friends, expectations, but it's not coming from us always. And so I think that's a lot of it, in my opinion.
I love that. And as you was talking about that, I was thinking about how sometimes people can look for validation from people in their lives
Mm.
and on social media as well. And
Oh,
I've seen how
absolutely.
it can have a adverse effect about how people model what they do, right?
Right.
And you know, talking about the whole social media aspect as well, especially in the field that we're in helping things, I've seen the pros and cons on both sides. And a lot of the pros that I've seen is that it does inspire people to think outside the box, to begin
Hmm.
to develop a good positive mindset, depending on who you're following, right?
Right.
But
Right.
also, one of the biggest cons that I've seen is that it allows people to build a fantasy life and put that out in front of people, which in
Hmm.
turn, when people see these things, people can think about those things, but never really think about what's going on behind the scenes, right?
Sure.
And so that can, when people really embark on this, they never really see the other side of it until they're actually in the midst of it, right?
Hmm. Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the biggest trap is the comparison trap. I mean, everybody's life looks perfect on social media. Like, very rarely, you know, do people sit there and, okay, my kid got kicked out of school, or, like, or God, I had a horrible fight with my spouse or something like that. Like, unless it's that kind of channel where they are talking about grief and, connectivity and stuff like that, where people can feel more safe talking about those issues. I think a lot of people are posting the best of what's happening to them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then everybody's comparing, sorry, their fantasy life with somebody else's fantasy life. And I know people who have told me this, it makes me feel like crap, like, especially like moms who are really stressed out and see these moms who are like, I wake up at 5 and I do 10 loads of laundry and run 5 miles and bake cake all before 8 a.m. and I'm better than you. And I know friends, and I always have to be like, you know what, but that's not real life. What I mean? Like, we all show, like,
Right.
the best that we possibly can. And I think also there's just so much, it's such a judgmental environment out on social media, because even the people who are really going through something and authentic, sometimes of course they get criticized, and that's also not helpful for us. If somebody's crying because they're going through a divorce, and then you have somebody on there like making fun of them or something like that, it's not helpful. So social media is kind of a double-edged sword. I think it does provide that connectivity that can be really helpful, especially so you don't feel alone in like whatever you're going through. I mean, I think that aspect of the internet in general is so valuable. But then there's also that other side that you just have to be very careful to always remind yourself that it's not always how it seems, and don't compare where you are with where somebody else is, because we all have our own path. We all have our own circumstances, situations, and struggles. Even the people whose lives look perfect. Look at Anthony Bourdain. Like, everything looks perfect. And then, I mean,
Yeah.
for most people, that would be the dream life. From like, wow, you travel around the world making a travel show, like, amazing. And underneath it, there was the mental health struggle that you don't know.
I'm glad that you brought that up too, because we've lost a couple of celebrities to mental health challenges,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not I think about Anthony Bourdain. I remember watching him and watching him travel the world and go experience all of these beautiful cultures, right? And it makes you
Yeah.
dream about those things. Like, I wonder what that would be like. But then you see the dark side of it, the things that they don't struggle with. But
Right.
also, you think about the Robin Williams of the world, right?
Right.
Genius, a comedy genius, right? From
Hmm.
Mork and Mindy up until his stand-ups and his times on SNL. And we often looked at his life and was like, man, I would love to be around him, just because, you know, be, be,
It brought
it
so
be
much light.
yeah, it brought so much light and so much laughter into people's lives, right?
Yeah.
There was another guy, Twitch, and he worked with um, 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 Jesus Christ, I can't remember her name, but he worked with someone too, and on the outside seemed very, very genuine, very happy, and then next thing he
Yeah.
went down the path of
Was he a dancer?
unaliving himself. Yeah, he was a dancer. Yes,
Yeah, yeah, I
exactly.
remember. Yeah, I wasn't so familiar with him, but I remember hearing about it, and so many people were really upset by that. I mean, because it was just, the guy has an awesome life, and you don't realize people are suffering behind the facade that we sometimes put up, of being
Yeah.
being successful or happy and stuff like that.
So I love that. Let's talk about something that we carry with us in grief. Having the conversations around grief,
Hmm.
and which direction that we can begin to help our communities begin to understand not just the one aspect or what they may perceive as grief, but seem to start to look at it as a more vast conversation to be had with everyone, with amongst ourselves, and the steps that we can take to do better, right?
Sure.
Because you mentioned something with the children and and grief and things like that. Let's talk about that a little bit. How is the way out of the world beginning to affect the direction that our children are going in with what they're carrying
Mm.
in today's situation?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think in general, as a society, I don't think that we really learn to grieve. I mean, especially like depending on what generations. I think the younger the generations get, they're more able to be aware of their emotions and kind of process things. But I think in general, from a young age, kids are either taught like, okay, you're being loud, like go sit by yourself until you figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's not that nurturing of like being able to have healthy emotions, and it's okay to get angry about something. It's okay to be sad, you know, without hurting other people. But I think, and I don't exactly know what that would look like. I mean, I feel like in school that should be taught, how to manage our emotions. And one of the things that is cool about EFT is they have started using it in schools and stuff like that. And because it does calm the nervous system. And so even with little kids, like one of my friends has a son who's like, he's the last 2 3 years, he's like 8. She'll teach him like if he's upset about something to sit there by himself and just and like tap, and it allows you to process the emotions and your, big feelings so that you can release them. And I think that's really important for kids because, especially, I'm Gen X, and I know Gen X, a lot of my friends who are Gen X men have just really not been taught how to deal with emotions. There's a lot of substance abuse, there's a lot of depression, there's a lot of anxiety just because people are not really taught to handle their feelings. And I include myself in this. I had to learn. This was something that I've really been working on for years and years and years to try to learn to process emotions instead of bottling them up, telling everybody you're fine, when inside you're really struggling.
I can relate to that because we both come from the same generation, the Gen X generation. And it took me back to a place from at a very early age where, as a young boy, I was always taught to, man up, to, just deal with it, and just keep moving on. Don't dwell on it too much.
Yeah.
And just like yourself, and many of us right now that are Gen Xers, we're becoming emotionally aware of the damage that has been done to us, and we're starting to develop the courage to actually tell people, no, I'm not okay. Right. And then looking at the path that we've been on, I see a lot of positive things going in terms of watching what the younger generation is doing and incorporating some of those ideas into our own ideology as we begin to get out of the Toys R Us kid era, right? Because and once you get told that you're a Toys R Us kid, that you didn't want to grow up, kind of puts things into perspective of going, maybe it's time for me to, I can still be a Toys R Us kid, but I do have to get out of this mindset because we have the tools that are available. And I have another friend of mine who has done EFT. I forget. And I want to ask you this. Where did EFT really originate from? And how has it advanced us and incorporated into our lives, when it comes down to, like you said, regulating our nervous system?
Sure. So it was started in the 90s by Gary Craig and Roger Callahan, both who were really into acupuncture and, Eastern medicine. And it's basically it's the premise that we have these acupuncture points all over our body, but on our face. And they realized that even without the needles, that if you, press these acupuncture points or you tap them, that it sends a signal to your brain to calm down. And so basically, like these points, you really touch them anyway. You probably don't think about it. When you have a headache, you kind of just normally go like this, right? Like on your temple, that's an acupuncture point. Or sometimes, you might be scratching your head. Like these are the points that we naturally kind of gravitate towards. But they realized that by doing these sequences that they could reduce also like the emotional charge of certain memories. So they started using it like with veterans who, every time that they would think of something, they would get triggered, they would get activated, and they would get into an activated state, right? And so they realized that when you talked about certain things, you didn't always have to bring up the exact situation, but you could be tapping as the person talked about it and release the emotions that were underneath. And that's the important part of it. It's allowing you to process it instead of stuff it down, which is what most of us kind of do, because it's like, but then you, on the other hand, you kind of become a loose cannon because you don't know what the emotions are going to come out in some way or another. You can't just keep stuffing them down. But so then they started using it like on other things, like people with phobias and stuff like that. And so I don't work personally with like PTSD and severe trauma, but from my standpoint, EFT can be used in two main ways. The first is for like daily mental health. So whether it's just, being able to ground yourself in the morning, just when you start your day so that you're less reactive, you're responding to things, you're a bit calmer. It's good for stress release. It's good, for anger. It's good for, fears. It's good for, sadness and moving through grief. Like there's plenty of YouTube videos, for example, that you can find. My favorite is always Brad Yates. That's how I found EFT myself. I was literally about to have a panic attack and I found his video and I was like, okay, it looks ridiculous to me. Like it does look kind of funny. When you understand what you're doing, then you're kind of like, all right, I get it. Fine, I'll try it. And then it actually helps. So, but the other way that I find the most powerful, because I've integrated into my transformational coaching, is that using it for self-esteem, like for releasing that negative self-talk, that tells us that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, that we don't deserve, to have the promotion, we don't deserve that person. And all of the things that can kind of show up and keep us from getting outside of our comfort zone, not feeling good enough, and self-sabotaging. And that kind of comes out in different ways. Like, we might procrastinate, or we might take a fight with somebody. We might quit the second it gets, tough. Or we might have the why bother? Like, why bother applying to that job? They don't want me anyway. Like these
Right,
kind of
right.
things that, of course, yeah, you might not get the job, but like if you already kind of you made the decision that you're not going to get it before anything's even happened, you kind of sabotage. And so that's where I really find that it's powerful with clients, because a lot of times, and I know from myself, because I've, like I said earlier, like through different stages in my career, I have had imposter syndrome about, getting outside my comfort zone, doing the thing. And a lot of times I was in a point where I was so uncomfortable that I had to change my life, and the last 12 years, thankfully, I've had EFT tapping so that I can, I could tap on starting a YouTube channel, or starting a social media channel, having to get out there and talk about what I do. Cause I was terrified of like, going on podcasts and doing videos and stuff.
Yeah.
And I tapped through all of those things. So it does go to show that, you don't have to be like 100% brave or 100% ready in order to make changes in your life. You just need to start with the decision of like, I'm not where I want to be right now.
Right,
And what do I need to do to get myself there? Like, do I need to believe more in myself? Do I need to be okay with failure? Because do I need to be okay not being perfect at something? Do I need to be okay with other people maybe not supporting me? A lot of times they don't. We've got to know what we want internally, and do it anyway.
Oh, I love that. I love that right there. Now I want to get into your journey.
Mhm.
About how did you get into here, get into this field, and what was your aha moment along the way?
Sure. So, I found EFT. Like I said, I was an older student. I decided to get my master's. I'm here in Germany. And so the thing is, like, I completely forgot how to retain information. Like if you're working and you're doing hands-on things all the time, I couldn't cram for a test like everybody else. Everybody else was, 24, 25 doing their masters. I was 34 at the time.
Mhm.
And I was about to have a breakdown. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and I had 3 exams that week, and I was, hyperventilating and everything. I was just like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna blow all of my tests. I'm gonna completely mess up everything," all the catastrophizing. And I Googled like panic and fear, like how to stop panic and fear. And I
Yeah.
find Brad Yates' video, Fear and Panic Right Now. And I'm like, that's the one. All right, I'm gonna try it. And 10 minutes later, I was like, huh, I feel a bit better. I don't feel all the way better, but this is definitely something here. And so I did it several more times. And 30 minutes later, I was the calmest that I had been in literally a week. And I was a complete
Wow.
mess. And the tests were still there. Like I couldn't move them or something like that. So then I started just using it for job interviews and like before important discussions, where you have to have difficult conversations, or when I was mad or sad or whatever, that I needed to emotionally process things better. And then when I during the pandemic, I was working for a startup, and unfortunately COVID hit. So they let go of the last batch of hirees. And so guess what? That was me. And so like many people, unfortunately, during the pandemic, I found myself in the middle of a pandemic without a job, like just complete panic again. And we were going into lockdown. And I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to do coaching. I'm a natural motivator. I like helping people to see, the power within themselves that they sometimes don't see, because I know
Right.
that people in my life have been there to show it to me. And I know how valuable that is, like really how valuable that can be to push somebody forward when they're completely, knocked down. And so I was like, well, like I saw just, it was like on Facebook, like a, transformational coaching, meeting or whatever by Animus. And it was in the UK. And I was like, oh, it's in English. And so I did the thing and I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. And now that I don't have a job, I can do that. I can get certified because I wasn't going to be doing anything else during lockdown. So I got that. And then I got the certification for tapping, just because there'd be so many examples in the coaching where somebody's afraid to do something. They just can't take the next step. A lot of times it's, they can't publish a website. They have this book they've been sitting on for 10 years, but they just can't publish it, or can't start something. And I was like, man, I know that EFT tapping would help, but I got to get certified. So I got certifications. And so now I integrate that, and I show people how to overcome their fears so that they can, get what they want out of life without, the fears and self-sabotage running the show.
I
It's
love
something we
that.
all need.
This is very, very true. Thank you for sharing that. Which leads me, because I know in everything that we do in this field, there is certain stigmas, things that people may think about, the idea of what it is, whether it be EFT, whether it be life coaching and things like that. What is the biggest stigma around the concept of life coaching and EFT have you encountered with people? Like their own thought process behind that?
I think the biggest one, so for coaching, the problem is that it's an unregulated industry. So there's a lot of people who just decide to be coaches from one day to the other. And so, like, you can see $7.99, $7.99, get a coaching certificate,
Yeah.
and you see these people, and there's the joke. I'm in one digital nomads group, and they're always talking about 20-year-old life coaches who are like, I can fix your life. And I mean, it's so they kind of make fun of it because it's, unfortunately, there's no quality control. You need to make sure that you know who you're working with. Like, have they
Right.
been trained? And there's coaches, of course, that maybe they worked in that industry, so now they're a coach for business people and something like that. That's a completely different thing because that's an experience-based thing. But
Right.
if somebody's just deciding one day that they're going to, because the misunderstanding by a lot of new coaches is, one, that they're just giving advice, which is not what coaching is at all. It's you helping them to bring out the answers from themselves by answering the right questions, kind of guiding them. And then, sorry, I just like lost there. And then for EFT, unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand that it is scientifically backed. I mean, you can go look everything up. They use it for PTSD. They use it for severe traumas and phobias, and it does, calm the amygdala in the brain to get your body out of the fight, flight, freeze. So even though it does look funny, I mean, I know, I agreed. It's an amazing tool, and I love watching, like, the Tapping Solution has a summit every year. The Tapping Solution, they also have an app, but they're kind of, I'd say, the mainstream commercial EFT that you probably see around, and see them on, like, the daily shows and things like that. So, but they go around kind of showing people, like, in office spaces, about stress and, avoiding burnout and all of these things. And, like, where was I going with that? The tapping. Oh yeah. So on the summit, you see so many therapists and psychologists that are now integrating tapping into their practice, because they're like, this is one thing that, like, my client was stuck. I couldn't get her out of this. She had this emotionally charged memory, and because of tapping, we cleared it. So it's amazing. They used it after Sandy Hook, like, and also, like, in Rwanda after the genocide. They went over there to help a lot of the kids and everything like that who had experienced all this trauma and couldn't talk about it, because a lot of times you need to release, this emotional charge in the nervous system, but you can't get somebody re-traumatized by talking about it,
Right.
because they relive that, and it can be, yeah, I mean, it can be devastating to kind of reactivate that. So that's where tapping can be super helpful.
So I love that. Which leads me to my next question, which has been the question on everybody's mind since this has begun. Integrating AI into the practices that we're now offering to people. And the reason for the question is because, on one side, the argument is that people will still crave in-person connection, person to person and things like that. And on the other side, it's really hard to see where, or no, let me rephrase that. I'm trying to figure out how can AI be used as a tool
Hmm.
in helping enhance what we do, but I haven't quite figured that part out. So the two-part question is, yeah, is that what are your thoughts on that?
On AI in terms of what I do, or
Yeah,
like,
how is it, is it, can it be beneficial into helping educate people on EFT and being a life coach in your practice? Or, or are people starting to lean towards more towards the AI integration,
hmm,
as we're starting to see now?
I don't know. I mean, I guess in terms of my clients, most of them, I mean, just because we had, especially in Germany, we had lockdown 3 times. Like, most people
Jesus.
now, yeah, I know. It was long. But most people here now really like the in-person things. I mean, I did, like I said, a workshop yesterday, and people love being able to just have that connection, you know? And while I'd say most of my sessions are online, like on Zoom, because I started during the pandemic on Zoom, and because of that, it's been able to, amplify my voice. Um, I still think most people would prefer to do things in person. And in terms
Mhm.
of AI with what I do, I mean, like, I don't know, I know that there are these AI coaches and stuff online. I think for certain things, when it comes to clarity, it could definitely be helpful, and in terms of trying to figure out the why. But the most powerful thing about EFT is helping your nervous system to be able
Right.
to adapt to these things because, as you know, like anybody who's ever not been in a good place and go to say affirmations in the mirror and you're like, I'm good enough and I'm happy and like whatever, there's your brain is like, you're lying. You know what I mean? And so it can be really
Mhm.
hard to make that cognitive shift and reframing to where you do believe it. And that's where the EFT, like, I mean, we literally did it yesterday. You're just like, okay, I'm worried I'm not enough. And you go through and like, I'm releasing the idea that I'm not enough. I'm willing to, be enough. I'm choosing to feel like I'm enough. And it sounds very simple, like, just watching that, but it actually changes your brain so that you're like, huh, maybe I am enough. And so the more affirmations that you do while you're tapping, your brain is like, okay, actually this is a new thing. All right, maybe I am going to be able to believe this. And so you leave with a different idea than how you went in, which is extremely powerful.
I love that.
I
I
don't know
love
about
that
AI
because
being able to do that. I don't know.
no, as you were talking about that, I started thinking about frequencies and vibrations and how EFT actually helps regulate those vibrations along with affirmations, self affirmations, and right, and how
Mhm.
important that is, um, in how we navigate that self talk, right? But it
Yeah.
also got me to thinking about human behavior and how sometimes our self talk will sometimes reflect either the traumas that we've gone
Mhm.
through or our perception of success that we've gone through. And the middle piece, where most people may be confused of how to hold that space with you, and as you're navigating it, right? And so in this space that we're in, I want to talk about the importance of holding that space and having empathy and understanding of the individuals that we're in the space with. And what are some of the do's and don'ts, um, that we can implement into our daily lives to better help us become better visitors in that space?
You mean for showing up for ourselves or for other
Uh-huh.
people?
Well,
No, for
both showing up for ourselves and for other people, because those are two different scenarios, right? Of how we show up to
right.
ourselves, with ourselves, than how we show up with other people.
Right. I think with ourselves, I mean, the important thing is to always remember how you talk about yourself is how you see yourself, and that affects how you show up and the actions that you take. And I
Yeah.
think what most people don't realize is how critical, of ourselves that we are, just like, especially you make a mistake and, oh, why did you do that? What is it? Oh, you don't know anybody, like just kind of this spiral negative self-talk. And a lot of times, I mean, we could say things to people, or sorry, to ourselves that we would never say to another person. We would never tell a kid, like, "Oh, idiot!" Like, what? You know what I mean? Like, that's not the way that we know that we should not talk to other people like that. But we sometimes lack that empathy for ourselves, that self-compassion. And I think that's one of the more important things, to just to catch yourself in that moment when you're like, oh, like, can't believe I did that. Like, what a what a screw up, whatever. And be like, it's okay. I'm making mistakes. I'm learning. I'm growing. And what I do in the tapping sequence is I always am like, I know more than I did last year. I know more than I did 5 years ago, and I'll know a lot more next year. And in 5 years, I'm always learning and growing. I'm never stuck. I can always move forward and progress. And I think with other people, it's just important to, lend that same empathy and not be judgmental, because one of the things I think people don't always realize is that the more judgmental we are of other people, you know, whether I mean, I see this a lot on social media. People are like, yeah, everybody's fake. It's just like, okay, but we're also looking at things through the lens of our own perception. And a lot of times we're reflecting who we think we are. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you're going around criticizing everybody, you're probably very critical of yourself, which is why, of course, if you're in a space where everybody's criticizing one another, okay, all those people do not feel good about themselves, because if you feel good about yourself, you have no reason to try to tear anybody down. Why? Because it doesn't feel good. It only would feel good if you just feel like crap about yourself. And it's important to get to a place in your power where you recognize that, okay, that person treating me like crap does not mean that I'm a piece of crap. It means that that person has their issues that they're projecting onto me. And not giving your power away to other people's, words and behavior is one of the most powerful things I think that we can do for ourselves, but also in teaching that to other people. Because I think, especially with social media, to go back to your point earlier, you know, there's so much criticism online. I mean, I don't know how kids growing up as teenagers do it these days. There's so much need for validation. And if your entire self-esteem and self-worth is built on the validation of others, then you can be torn down by that very easily as well, because it's all hinging on everyone else.
Yeah.
But that's one of the harder things that we have to learn in life. You know what I mean? That self-validation, that I am enough. And you know what? Like, that criticism doesn't need to be who I am. That's
Right.
them. But that's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, now I'm in my 40s, and so it's a lot easier to be like, oh, I get it now, but like, I didn't get it when I was 20.
That I do understand. And I think a lot of that too is surrounding yourself with good people.
Mhm.
People that will also hold you accountable for the
Yeah.
things, for the things that you've told yourself, right?
Mhm.
Someone to come up to you and go, no, we don't do that, right?
Mhm.
How about slow down a little bit and learn to respond to what you're thinking and what you're feeling. Uh, I was telling somebody else this, you know, whenever you're in a situation, ask yourself if the situation is worth the emotion that you're about to put into it, right?
Mhm.
And regulating yourself behind that, right? Because you said something. A lot of things that we experience in life is repetition, right? These things will keep happening to us over and over and over again, and until we begin to extract the knowledge and make a different choice. And
Mhm.
it may show up again to, kind of redirect you and things like that. But, a lot of that is repetitious, I believe. And, and it's easily, well, not easily. You really have to think logically about the emotions that's being invested into it. Because, when we talk about children and things like that, and as adults, we've lived a life that most of these children may never live. And so our
Mhm.
perception on life is pretty much one-sided when it comes to it, because our job as human beings is to protect our younger generation instead of
Yeah.
embracing the younger generation and going, what can I learn from this? And incorporating both ideologies within our life, right? Without
Mm.
judgment, like you said, without looking at something and saying, oh, this is better than this, because each individual
Yeah.
is going
That's
to,
bad. This is good.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But being able to incorporate in them and look at the tools and the knowledge that's being presented, and being able to rationally look at it and seeing what benefits you in that moment in life as you begin to move forward. Now, but again, these are just my thoughts, of the journey, and things like that, which may change, as we begin
It's
to
part of the journey, right?
It's part of the journey. It's part of the process that we must endure. Now, you mentioned earlier that you started a podcast?
No, I am on podcast, but I have like a YouTube channel. I don't have a podcast, unfortunately. Can't have one more thing. I'm a one-woman show.
Not a problem. Let's talk about your YouTube channel. What is your YouTube channel about?
So my YouTube channel is so I have a bunch of different social media. My YouTube channels, I try to put up EFT tapping videos as I think about them. So a lot of them are, or there are ones that like I had a really great client session with a certain topic, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this topic and make a 10-minute video out of it. So I do a lot of things on, for example, like money mindset, because a lot of clients have noticed, because like basically a lot of times our money, our sense of our ability to make money is also how we view ourselves in terms of our worth. And that is very important to be able to shift if you're not in a place where you believe that you can receive, or you're worthy of more, or deserving of more. And so I do have some like videos that they can check out when it comes to money, or things like, one of the most popular ones I have is like the fear of not opening mail and like bills, things like that. Because and I know that like this has happened to me in the past. And so I was like, I'm going to definitely make this. But
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's one of those random ones that like, I mean, because this happened to me. I was in a situation financially a few years ago that like you get afraid to open mail. You know what I mean? And then like I had a client do this, and I was like, yeah, all right, that's it. I'm going to make it. But I have other ones just on stress release and confidence. And sometimes I talk about like, living in abroad, because I've lived in 6 different countries outside of the US, for study or work or whatever. And now I've been in Germany since 2012. But so sometimes I talk about, little funny things in Germany. I have Instagram as well. Same things. I like to show, people the side of Munich that I see. And I go to the mountains and stuff a lot. I love Bavaria. Bavaria is green and gorgeous. And people don't realize, that they don't need to go to Switzerland, where it's really, really expensive. Bavaria is actually much cheaper, and you can get the same mountains.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And what else do you have coming out?
So my I will have some more ebooks coming out. I already have some free ebooks, by the way, that are really helpful. Like if you're interested in EFT, maybe I just piqued your curiosity on it, you want to know more. I've got books on EFT, and also ones on EFT and anxiety and stress and managing that. One on imposter syndrome, that's brand new. It's a super helpful one. I do live workshops or like webinars, usually once a month. The next one is going to be coming up August 4th or 5th, whatever that Tuesday is. And so I do usually like these 90-minute workshops, just so you can kind of, start working a little bit with confidence and imposter syndrome, and learn about EFT tapping, and you get to try it yourself. And those are only like €7. So it's which is like $8. So it's a very like low entry point. So you can get in, see what I'm about, get to know me. And then I do have the longer ones that are more of a deep dive. Those are 3 hours. And that's if you're really like, okay, gotta get outside of my comfort zone today. Like, and those ones I have in person, in Munich. That's what I had yesterday. And then I have the webinars. So yeah,
I love that.
I have lots of things happening.
I love that. People, and you also sent me your social media links too. So for everybody who's interested in knowing more about what Andrea is doing, and you want to be involved in it, maybe learn some new tools, go check it out. Her information is on the YouTube channel. So Andrea, I only have a few more questions for you before I let you go. One, thank you for being on the show today and sharing your knowledge with us and taking us on the journey of how you became who you are. I think that's fascinating. All the wonderful things that you have coming up. Definitely would like to know more about that and how I can support that as well. So my next question would be, how can people find you on social media?
Sure. So basically the company name is Living Deliberately Today. It's from a Thoreau poem. And my name is Andrea Hunt. So basically, if they just search Andrea Hunt, Living Deliberately Today, they will find everything. They will find my Facebook, my TikTok, my Twitter or X or whatever. and my YouTube channel. And so they can get to know more about me and be, they can also, go to my website, which is dreahunt.com, DREAHUNT.com. And, they can also find out about my upcoming events. I've got a blog article where I've got lots of super helpful information for, EFT for better mental health or for motivation, perfectionism, whatever it is that you need. Lots of helpful articles.
I love that. Now, my next question would be, if Andrea had a superpower, what would it be?
To get you to see, I would say, the brilliance in yourself.
Mm.
Did you mean my superpower that I would have, or what I do have?
If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, I think I would like to be able to beam myself places. like, like Scotty, Scotty beam me up.
Yeah, I do. When you said it, I don't know if a lot of people or who's watching right now, but the old Star Trek reference took me there like, oh no, she didn't.
Yeah, I mean, like, the superpower that I have is I am wonderful at being able to help you see the power and brilliance in yourself that you might not have seen before, and to get you
So I love
motivated
that.
to be able to act on that. And then my hypothetical superpower that I would love to have is to be able to beam myself around the world when I can travel, and it would be a lot cheaper than getting those plane tickets.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
Exactly.
So I love that. I'm gonna be laughing about that for a while. Right? Said the whole Star Trek reference. Like, no, she did. Stop showing you.
Yeah.
Stop snitching on us, okay? Showing our ages and everything to people. No, I love it. So my last question to you would be: if you could leave the audience with something, what would you leave them with?
So I think that, if we look around at the moment, the world definitely needs better leadership at the moment. I think that we can all look, it's a little bit chaotic. And so what I want everybody to walk away with, if you just remember one thing, is if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? The world needs people with integrity. The world needs good leaders that are powerful and have good intentions and hearts and souls. So don't let everyone else be the ones in charge, because don't hold yourself back. The world needs really good people like you to know their brilliance and their worth. And like, there's a quote that I saw that said that there are people out there doing the things that you want to do, not because they're better than you, but they believed in themselves, for better or for worse. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And people need to know more about you as well with the awesome work that you're out there doing. And as I always tell people that we talk to are out here changing people's lives one heartbeat at a time. And to watch the work that you do, it just gives me more faith and hope in humanity, in the direction that we're going in, and to see the amazing individuals like yourself starting to step up, to the plate and going, you know what? I have this amazing gift. I got to give it out to the world, and you're making a difference. And so I think that's truly, truly amazing. And now with that being said, Andrea, I want to say again, thank you for tuning. Thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. If you want to know more about Andrea, again, her information is in the YouTube channel. Go there and check her out, and learn these valuable tools, but also learn from someone who's been there and is walking the path. And for everyone else, thank you guys for tuning in. And as you guys already know, we do one every day. And so we got another one coming tomorrow. With that being said, guys, hopefully you guys are out there making memories with the people that you love, because tomorrow's not promised. Guys, I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys for everything. And I'll keep allowing me to keep bringing these stories to you guys. And have an amazing day. Peace.